I'm Kristen Andre, founder and chief strategist of Andre Consulting Group. I founded my company almost 10 years ago because I love helping people not only succeed, but thrive in their careers and their lives. So many times I meet amazing people who have so much more potential than what they're utilizing. As I engage with them, there seems to be a common theme: the limits they place on themselves. Throughout this podcast series, we're going to visit some incredible people who have created more intentional lives for themselves, those who've had that no limits moment where they chose to grow and they put things in motion to help them do so. We will focus on how you can break through limits. We will equip you with strategies to help you lead a more intentional life, and we will have a lot of fun along the way. So let's dive in. Hi, everyone, and welcome to No Limits with Kristen Andre. We are here today with Sarah Bristow of Growing Grounded, if I can talk today. So thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So I am excited today because you are, as you could, a health and wellness practice leader. Mm-hmm. So talking a lot about mindfulness, being present.
Yes.
I think that's a big, important thing. Definitely for me, because it's a challenge a lot of times to do that.
It is. When you kind of start to pick it apart and understand what it means, present moment awareness is what the definition of mindfulness is. And it really just means being present in the moment and paying attention to what you're doing at the given moment, So it's a really simple concept, but it's one of those things that's really hard to put into practice. And it actually takes practice to learn to do that.
It definitely does, because I don't think it comes natural. Now you weren't always in this. So tell us a little bit about you. Give us your story.
So I was a first grade teacher for, almost 10 years. I taught, we lived out in Idaho. I taught in Sun Valley, Idaho for a couple years.
Okay.
And
first grade, though.
I was first grade and third grade out there.
That's a tough age.
We moved to Atlanta, and I took a little bit of time off when I had my babies. And then I started working at Trinity.
Okay.
And I was teaching first grade there. And the classroom has always been really natural to me, so it was easy to find little pockets of time where you could start to bring in different things.
Right.
So I started by bringing in kids yoga. So we started doing a little bit of yoga every now and then. And then I realized that, first graders doing yoga looks a lot like gymnastics, so I needed something that could sort of bring them back down.
Okay.
So we started having mindful moments. And so we would do a little bit of breath work or a little bit of, a guided visualization or a guided meditation.
Okay.
And from there, we actually, the Trinity TV station, a little TV station within the school, we did a segment called Mindful Moments. And so then it just kind of continued to grow. And next thing I knew, I had parents who were saying, can you help my child after school? Or can you lead a small group or that kind of thing? So I started doing that. And then I realized that really was kind of where my heart was going. And every day turned into like this new adventure. And like, how could I bring more of this into my life and into the lives of the kids?
So did the kids... did they? It sounds like they grasped onto it.
They did. They loved it.
And they sat, because I have a little one, and sitting is not a skill set.
Well, kids,
it's not one of her strengths.
Yeah, right. I can totally relate to that. I have two kids of my own. But kids are innately mindful. Like when you think about another core sort of value of mindfulness is tuning into your five senses.
Yeah.
And that's one of the very first things that kids learn. So as they start to understand their five senses, when you start to tune into your five senses, it brings you back to the present moment, right?
Okay.
So kids have an easier time letting go of all these distractions that surround us and an easier time being in the moment. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's really, because now that I think about that, my non-sitter, she's definitely the most, out of my kids, she's the youngest. She's definitely the most aware. Mm-hmm. She pays attention a lot. She's I call her my heart. Like she's the one, she's got the good heart.
Yeah.
Because she does really pick up on feelings and thoughts and how other people are reacting.
Yeah.
Probably more so than older kids.
Yeah, I think some kids, I think we all have it within us. You know, it just kind of starts to get clustered and get clogged with all the other things we have going on. And the kids don't have all those other things going on yet. We're starting to see the need for it at younger and younger ages. So if you can teach the kids these tools, then they're able to use them as they start to navigate harder situations as they get a little bit older.
So what type of tools are you focusing on with like the younger age groups, and then kind of work your way up and see? Because I'm assuming the tools may get a little different as they're older.
They do. But a lot of the self-regulation strategies, so learning how to not be really reactive, like how to take a step back and think for a moment before you react. That's a big one with little kids.
Okay.
And then, how to sort of handle yourself in a tricky situation. We do a lot of breath work. A lot of kids, when they start to get anxious, it's just the snowball effect,
Yes.
So if you can pull them out of the moment, distract them from the situation that's bothering them, and entertain them almost with some sort of breath work, then it really does tap into that parasympathetic nervous system, which allows them to bring themselves back down and pulls them out of the fight or flight mode.
And even at younger ages, you're seeing that.
Absolutely.
Wow, how cool is that?
Absolutely.
Now, why do more schools not do this?
It's creeping in. We're starting to see it in more and more schools. More schools are bringing in yoga. More schools are bringing in mindfulness. I think a lot of people, when they think about mindfulness or meditation, a lot of people think that it has to do with some sort of religion, but it doesn't really. A lot of it is just about taking care of yourself.
Okay.
And I think you see a little bit of resistance from some schools, but I do feel like that more and more schools are starting to see the need to help kids of all ages learn how to take care of themselves.
Yeah. Because that's something that there's so many things that are just life skills that aren't taught.
Exactly.
Yeah. I could see that.
And when I started to, when I sort of was launching this, I met with a lot of psychologists, psychiatrists, educational consultants, parents, teachers, and I was sort of said, what's your take on this?
Yeah.
And I'll never forget one mom said to me, she said, I think it's fantastic. She said, we prioritize baseball and basketball and even art lessons. And she said, are our kids going to grow up to be professional athletes or famous artists? I don't know. Maybe so or maybe not. But do they need to learn to handle themselves on a daily basis? Yes.
I hadn't really thought about that, because if you think about the sheer amount of time, money, resources that are spent on lessons and coaching and teams and sports, which are all great things. Right. It is leaving out that component. I'd not really thought about that before. And
this can really, contribute to that component. If you teach a breathing technique, let's say, then, if you're a 10-year-old on the free throw line, everyone's looking at you, or even in high school or on the free throw line, and it's a tense moment, and you know how to regulate your own emotions, then you have a leg up.
Very cool. All right. So what is your work? What does it look like now? Like, what are you doing with either school age or adults?
Yeah, so I partner with a lot of schools in the area, and I'll go in and I'll lead, seminars on mindfulness or meditation or just general self-care, anything kind of under the big health coaching umbrella. Okay. So I partner with the high schools. I do teacher education as well. Okay. And then I have some one-on-one clients who I do health coaching with. And I think, when people think of health coaching, they think of diet, nutrition.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought.
That's one piece of it, right? Okay. But there's so many different things that are involved. Like, so if your goal is to find more balance in your life, there's a lot of different things that we can look at to figure out where that balance needs to come from, or where the imbalance may be. Okay. So it's kind of peeling back the layers. And I teach yoga in Atlanta also, do some work at a studio, and then I also teach some private yoga. So I do kind of a lot of different things right now. But, the focus of my work, I would say, is really on mindful awareness. Okay. So what do you think, if we look at today's world, my first thought is how much of an effect is kind of our news 24/7 news cycle, always on the go, because I'm type A, crazy type A, like a lot of my friends, a lot of my clients are. Yeah. We're just moving constantly. Yeah. And I don't remember moving that much when I was a kid. I feel the same. I don't know if it's the cell phones, news cycle, what it is, but I feel like we are always almost like society wants you to be on the go. Yeah, they kind of have it out for us, Right. So how do you address that? I mean, is that what's causing this kind of lack of mindfulness, is that we aren't slowing and stopping enough? I think it's causing the need for more mindfulness, you know? So I think, the way the world is, it's busy. So what mindfulness and what meditation do is it gives us the tools to use, but it's up to us to use the tools, right?
Right.
So I think we pay attention to what's going on in the world around us, but what we really need to learn how to do is to use those tools to help us, because it's not a one size fits all. Like there's not one strategy that works for everyone.
Right.
And so you have to practice the things that work for you to figure out how you can be less reactive, how you can lengthen your fuse a little bit so you're not, sort of saying something you don't want to say or reacting to things or feeling so overwhelmed by all these things that are going on.
Because I think that's an important part, the fuse thing, because you said fuse, and I kind of joke, when I was younger, when I first met my ex-husband, I remember him saying, you're so laid back, you're so calm and everything. And my mom's like, she's got a really long fuse.
Yeah.
Just don't get to the end of it.
Right, exactly.
And so, but I feel like, which was totally true. But it took back then, I was 20. So back then it took a lot. My fuse was longer. Now there are some days, if I'm busy, if I'm stressed, if I've got a lot going on, I honestly think there may not even be a fuse. It is literally like, I could just blow at any moment, which a lot of people do.
Yeah, I think.
And I don't do it at work.
Right.
I'll do it at home. I'll do it with the kids, or something. The people you really don't want to see you blow up.
Well, everybody feels that way. No one's posting to Instagram or Facebook or social media, this is what happens when my fuse gets really short. But everybody feels
we've all
that
got
way,
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think meditation is really what can lengthen your fuse. It allows you to take a step out of the moment, to reflect a little bit, to really kind of see things through a different lens that makes it feel a little bit less intense.
All right, so let's talk about meditation for a while, because very popular right now. Spirit of full disclosure, I have tried it. Like I said, I'm type A. I haven't been able to I don't know what it is with me. I've done guided meditations, everything. I will run through my grocery checklist in my head.
Yeah.
And
you're in good company.
Yeah. So what do people like? And I think with me, it was almost like, I won't say a one and done, because I've tried it a couple of times and I've tried different, like just by myself or guided and what have you. And I haven't been able to get into it. And I know it would be extremely helpful, for, like you mentioned, lengthening the fuse.
Yes.
How do people get into it if they're more like, all over the place?
The monkey mind is so common. The monkey mind is a real thing. We are all over the place. And a lot of times when people sit down to meditate, they'll give it a shot for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, which is a great place to start.
Right.
But that's the amount of time that kind of takes you to settle into the space sometime, right?
Okay.
So it's after that sometimes you find that the mind starts to slow as the breath starts to deepen.
Okay.
So if you can just practice a few more times, it's all about the practice, right? It's like with anything in life. We don't get good at it by doing it one time.
Okay.
So you have to practice it. And a lot of times what I work with my clients on is I'll say, were you aware of your thoughts? And they're like, yes, I was aware of my thoughts. I had a million of them. But meditation is about becoming aware of your thoughts.
Okay.
That's
so it's not about not
meditation.
having any
It's not
thoughts.
about not having your thoughts, because we're just not wired to not have thoughts. That's just not the way it works.
Right.
So meditation creates more space between your thoughts and allows you to sort of see them for what they are.
Okay. Now, does it need to be done? And this is probably so for those of you guys listening that don't do meditation, you'll totally get this question. Those of you guys that do, just ignore my ignorance here. So does it need to be done sitting down, legs crossed, your hands?
That's my favorite question.
I'm telling you, because I see this and I'm like, when the heck am I going to do that? I feel like the time I'm most in my thoughts is if I'm on a long drive or in the car, I'll just turn off the radio. And I'm obviously not closing my eyes.
Right,
because that would be bad while driving.
Good thing, yeah.
But what's the space for it? Like where?
So it kind of depends on what type of meditation you're doing. So the difference in mindfulness and meditation, mindfulness is a way of life.
Okay.
Meditation is the practice.
Okay.
So you can live a mindful life with your eyes open if you're paying attention to what you're doing and, living kind of in that moment.
Okay.
Yeah. But meditation is more of, it's more of a guided, it doesn't have to be guided, but it's when you're sitting back and you're really tuned in. So you don't have to have your hands in mudra.
Yeah.
You don't have to be wearing all white. You don't have to be on a mountaintop. Like you just need to be in a place where you have some space to think and some space to be.
Okay.
And it's simply about, allowing yourself to relax. Like I always tell clients to start by relaxing your body and then relax your face and close your eyes and just start to tune into your breath and then tune into your thoughts.
Okay.
And what you notice when that happens is that your thoughts start to slow eventually, but it's just about noting your thoughts and becoming aware of them. And when that happens, we actually turn down the volume on our amygdala. When you can notice what your thoughts are, your amygdala, which is the part of your brain that takes over with the raw emotions.
Yeah.
These emotions just don't feel quite as intense when you can sit back and look at them through a different lens.
And I think a lot of times that's the opportunity, is to look at a different lens and try to figure out how we can do this.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to pause for a minute. When we come back, we're going to chat a little more with Sarah about this mindfulness and meditation and how we can implement it more in our own lives. So we'll be right back. Hey everyone, check out my podcast, No Limits with Kristen Andre, on Tuesday nights at 7:30. We will tackle the things holding you back and the limits you set on yourself, and equip you with some strategies to lead more intentional lives. Podcast launches every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. on facebook.com/Andre Group. That's facebook.com/ANDREE Group. We'll see you there. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to No Limits with Kristen Andre. We are chatting with Sarah Bristow of Growing Grounded. And before the break, we were talking about mindfulness and meditation and the difference between them. Yeah. So, it affects everybody, kids, adults, everywhere in between. Mm-hmm. But, we were talking a little during the break about how this all falls under taking care of yourself, self-care. Mm-hmm. And that's a big term we hear a lot right now.
Right.
But I feel like a lot of times, as you were saying, when people think of self-care, they're like, I'm going shopping, I'm going to get a massage, I'm going that. So how do you define self-care and taking care of yourself?
Self-care really is about, asking the question of what it is that you really need. So when we think about going to get a massage or going to get a coffee or whatever it is that you sort of think about self-care, those are great. We love those things, but they don't necessarily have the lasting effect that we need, So when I think about self-care, I think about asking the question, what is it that I really need right now? And sometimes the answer is, fresh air. Sometimes the answer is to rest and do nothing, because those moments are fewer and farther between,
Right.
So it's really, and sometimes it's, healthy meals for 3 days. Like, it's asking yourself what it is that you really need to allow you to thrive. Because I think the whole concept of self-care, it's out there, but it's really kind of, it's almost confusing because it looks different on everyone. And when you see people on Instagram or social media or all these things doing this or doing that, it kind of makes you think, oh, I should go do that. I need to do that, right?
Right.
But if that's not what you need, then that's not really caring for yourself.
Because I think everybody recharges the batteries and relaxes in a different way, for sure. And that's a good point, because what worked for you may be totally different for me. So where do we get off track with self-care? Like, when do we just stop taking care of ourselves?
I think we just have so many distractions that it's just like there's all these layers covering up what we need to be doing for ourselves. So as we start to peel back the layers and kind of ask the more challenging questions of what is it that I really need? Because we don't always like to hear the answer, you don't always want to know what it is that you really need, but we're such intuitive beings that I think we usually know the answer if we ask it, but it's about becoming aware of yourself and your body and really being able to say, I might need to take a step back. And sometimes that's frowned upon in society when really it doesn't need to be.
Well, and sometimes you just have to, or your body, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Your body's just going to shut down at some point and force you to take a break.
Yeah. One of the first things I ask clients when I'm working with them is, when they say, oh, I'm tired, or I can't lose weight, or I don't have the energy to work out. Right. I ask how much they're sleeping at night and how much water they're drinking. And those are two really basic things that even those things have gotten harder and harder to have in your daily life, because people are staying up later. You get in bed and then you scroll on your phone, you're reading emails, or it's harder to disconnect. So I think that makes it, that sort of starts to cut into our sleep. And then we're getting up earlier to fit in all these things in our day that we have to fit in, Right. And then you're running from here to there and you realize it's the end of the day. My husband said to me last night, I think I only had 1 cup of water. So we made a pot of tea right there and we drank a couple of cups of tea right before, hot tea right before we got in bed. Because I'm like, let's just go ahead and let's set ourselves up for success and give ourselves these little things.
Well, it's, and it's thinking about, it's trying to remember those little things. I mean, sleep and water seems like it should be natural. And Yeah, Isaac, our producer, knows this about me. I'm not a big I'm trying to get better. That's why he always makes sure. But I'm a Rockstar energy drink junkie, which is horrible. But I love it. And so I'm trying to like add the water in.
Yeah.
And sleep's another thing. I'm guilty of exactly what you say. Some days I'm great and I get stuff done and I don't watch a lot of TV. But I'll get stuff done. I'll read and maybe study a little bit and then I'll go to bed.
Yeah.
Other days I do. I get up there, I plug in my phone, I set my alarm, and then I'm like, let me just check Facebook or check my emails or something real quick. And you're right, it does cut into it.
Yeah.
And Isaac brought up a good point when we were talking about it with kids. We were chatting during the break about kids and how much they just don't know this stuff. You know, the pressure they're facing in high schools. And I know you work with a lot of children. So what effect is all this lack of self-care having on them?
I think it just like it makes things a little bit more confusing for us, it does the same thing for them. Like we didn't have cell phones necessarily.
Right.
When I was in high school and they need them and they use them, and when they come into meetings and the teachers say, turn your phones off, part of me is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're even allowed to have their phones in here. Yep. But a lot of times they check in for things on their phone or they're submitting assignments through their computer. So they need that. But what they don't know how to do, I feel like they've lost the ability to take a step away from it because they're so connected to their devices. It's just become the way of life for them. So with the high schoolers, a lot of time, I suggest to them to establish your nighttime routine. I am a huge believer in routines.
Okay.
When we think about babies, it's like, how quickly can you get your baby on that schedule? Like, are they sleeping through the night at 3 months?
Right.
And we all thrive off of these routines. And when we get out of our routine, that's when we start to feel imbalance. I think we have to be flexible with ourselves, right? But I think with these high schoolers, what I suggest to them is, what does your nightly routine look like? And, they don't usually have any sort of a routine.
Right.
So I encourage them and just to start by taking one small step. Because change happens with one small step, I encourage them to come up with some sort of routine. If it's close your computer, put it away, charge your phone in the other room, do some breathing before you get into bed, do some journaling before you get into bed, and then lay your head down on your pillow without your phone or whatever it is. But come up with a routine that starts to send that message to your brain of, I'm going to go to bed, I'm going to tune in. Because what happens with them is that they're going all day and they get in bed and they can't even fall asleep because their mind is still racing.
Right.
So if we can set ourselves up for bedtime, like even almost 2 hours before bedtime, have almost like what we like to do is have like a little 2-hour routine. So like if we're going to go to bed at 10, we sort of start this at like 8 o'clock.
Yep.
It's like you start by putting your phone away at 8 o'clock. And then you take 30 minutes to do the things around the house that need to get done. Finish cleaning up from dinner or whatever it is, know. And then you take that next 30 minutes to clean up your room or kind of honing in on bedtime. And then you take that last 30 minutes to brush your teeth and wash your face and all that. And then you have this plan in place. So it's kind of a
slow type of thing. So what about because I'm curious about this, the stories I hear, and my kids are spread out in ages. I have elementary, middle school. She'll be in high school next year in college. And I would say middle school and high school for us, I mean, some of these kids, I'm fortunate, mine were pretty self-directed with homework, so they'd come in and just get after it.
Yeah.
But there have been nights that they literally are working nonstop on homework and assignments until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. And, I'm sitting here going, holy cow, I can't remember staying up that late doing homework.
Well, I don't either.
Yeah. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, I'm not blaming the teachers for it. It's just they're teaching them what they need to know. Yeah. But how do we help them? Because I mean, I've got kids that I'll see in high school and elementary that, I know through their friends or middle school, that they're worn out, worn out. And I think this is where bad decisions go. You can't make a good decision when you're exhausted.
Exactly.
You just can't.
Exactly. So I think that we need to help them understand, what self-care is and helping them to understand that when you're completely exhausted, it doesn't really matter how much time you pour into your schoolwork. Right. It's not productive. So if we were to help them, just learn how to prioritize their time, I think that's one of the biggest things that we can help them understand. It's like if they can just build in a little bit of structure into their afternoons, then that helps them get the work done in the moment. And it also sets them up for success as you think about them moving and being, moving out of the house and being on their own. But what a lot of the kids will say is, they'll say, I sit down at my desk to get my work done. And then, I only check my phone a couple of times, but then I spend hours doing homework and I don't have time to do anything fun. Well, what starts to happen is they don't realize exactly what their time management looks like, so
Right.
they might think that they're working consistently, but every time they pick up that phone
Yeah.
to text or to check in or to do something, then it pulls them out of the moment. It's a distraction, and it takes a little bit of time to get back in.
Just like that's for adults too, if we're doing a project. Yeah.
So I recommended them, okay, take this, 1 hour or 2 hours and see what you can get done in that hour, and then stop. Then stop there and allow yourself to go to sleep.
Yep.
And then pick up again the next day. And what a lot of the teachers will tell the kids is if the kids go to the teachers and they say, listen, here's what happened last night. I was at practice till 6. I came home, I ate dinner. I worked really hard on this for 2 hours. I didn't have enough time to get it done.
Yeah.
Can I have a 1-day extension, or can I have this? A lot of the times the teachers will say yes, because what they want to know is that the kids are working to get things done and that they
Right.
really are dedicated to their studies. The teachers don't want these kids to have this total feeling of burnout. And sometimes
overwhelm,
the
yeah.
kids think that teachers are against them, and they're not,
Yeah.
So it's about keeping the lines of communication open, I think, and letting them know how they feel.
And that's a big thing is communicating, because I feel like with self-care, we talk about it. Well, we talk about the need for it.
Yes.
We don't talk about needing it, if that makes sense. And what I mean by that is, it's everybody says, oh, self-care, I mean, you can hashtag self-care all day long.
Yeah.
So people will be
Right.
like, I'm getting my toes done, self-care. That's not what it is. We don't
Right.
talk about the need for it. They're like, I am about to drop, I'm about to this, I'm snapping too quick, whatever it is, that fuse getting short. Well,
Right.
that's our need for it. And that's the part I feel like people aren't
Yeah.
addressing.
And it ripples,
Yeah.
as parents, when we practice self-care, that's what our children see. And so then
Yeah.
our children start to think, okay, well, mom and dad get in bed every night and they read, and that's the last thing
Right.
they do. I think I'll do that.
Yep.
So it's like they learn from us, and then our friends learn from us as
Yeah.
well. Like we just kind of ripple what we're doing out into
Yep.
the world. And if everyone, did one thing a day, one step towards self-care per day, I think it would be a better place.
And I think it is about a habit, because we did that for a while, and it brings it up. I need to get back to it. We did kind of like a family reading, because my
Yeah.
youngest doesn't love reading. The other ones enjoy it a lot. So we would do 30 minutes all at the same time, all in the living room.
Yeah.
And it was just a habit that we were into. We've unfortunately gotten away from it. So that's
Yeah.
a good thought to bring that back, because it's a self-care, and it's a chance that we all kind of do it. We do it at about 30 minutes before
Yeah.
she would need to start getting ready for bed. So
And
it
so
kind of
that's-
winds down a little bit.
Yeah, and that kind of comes back to that time management
Yeah.
piece that and you're also, training your brain. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, once I sit down to do this little reading segment, I know that this is what happens as I start to get ready
Right.
for bed. And so a lot of times, kind of back to the high schoolers and the younger kids, they're not sleeping as well because they're feeling overwhelmed, just like we're feeling overwhelmed. So building in these habits and these routines kind of allows them to just to build the habits back in that we need to get back to.
And I think that's a good point, because like I said, we got away from that, and it was one of those things that was working so good that we stopped doing it. So
Right, exactly.
It's building it in and making sure. So when we come back from the break, we're going to talk a little bit more about how you can build some habits and maybe some good ones to start in your own life. So we'll be right back. Hey everyone, it's Kristen. Be sure and visit my website at www.andregroup.com. That's www.andree group.com. And while you're there, be sure to download my white paper, Top 10 Reasons Your Business Isn't Growing Fast Enough. Now get out there and create your no limits moment. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to No Limits with Kristen Andre. We are wrapping up our time with Sarah Bristow of Growing Grounded. And before the break, we were talking a lot about self-care and the importance of that.
Yes.
And, I think for so many of us, it's totally a challenge. And I feel like, as a mom, I feel like it's a challenge for the kids even more than it is for me. But then, like you were saying, it's our responsibility to set that example.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we have this, we have this kind of thought, and a lot of times we're the ones that, give ourselves, we tell ourselves these things, we put these limitations on ourselves. But we think, okay, if I don't do this one thing at this moment, then all is a wash,
Yeah.
But it's like a lot of times, it'd be great if we could all spend the first 30 minutes of our day doing something for ourselves, but that's not the reality for a lot of us,
Right.
So if it doesn't happen when you are expecting it to happen or when you intend for it to happen, the day isn't lost. There's still all this other time in the day when you can bring in some sort of little piece of self-care.
And I think there's a ton, like you said, a ton of opportunity. I mean, the day's long. If you really look at it, I always tell people the amount of work you have to do expands or contracts to the time you have for it. Meaning if it's important, you will fit it in.
Yes,
Same thing with exercise, same thing with all that. If it's truly, truly important to you and a goal of yours that's meaningful, you'll find a way to do it.
Yep.
So with self-care, I think that's another thing. We have time for it if we really are honest with ourselves.
And if we think we don't, I think it'd be interesting to, and I tell clients this all the time, take a minute and just like map out what your day looks like.
Yeah.
And like notice when you're doing things that you're not even thinking you're doing. Like there's an app called, I think it's called Moment, where it tracks your time on social media or tracks your time on email. And a lot of times people say, guilty. I had no idea how much time I was spending on it. And when I did that, I'm like, okay, there is no excuse to not do a 20-minute meditation every day when I'm spending all this time doing this.
My phone has started doing that. I don't think I don't know what happened. I got a new phone and now it just tells me how much time. And I'll get an alert and it'll say, you spent this much time on social media or on, and I don't know if it's Facebook or All Things. I need to look more into it because it just pops up.
Yeah.
But what I started noticing is after a few days, it'd be like, your time decreased. And I'm like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
And I kept wanting it to decrease.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even tracking the time. It was more like, I just wanted to see
Go down a little.
it go down a little.
Yeah.
Like, so I would I'm like, yes, it decreased.
Yeah.
And I work a lot on social media. I mean, I have clients, I manage their social media, so I am on there a lot. But it was the same thing. It's like it made me think about how much of this is true business versus me just scrolling through the feeds and trying to see what's going on.
And I think we
world.
have to be realistic. Like so many people, we do our jobs on our phones a lot of the time now. So it's just about being aware. It comes back to awareness again of where you're spending your time, how you're spending your time. Are you working? Or if you feel like you don't have enough time, where could you get more time in your day? Like what could you cut out in order to bring in some more of these things that you want to make more time for?
Okay. All right. So every episode we issue a challenge to our listeners. And if you guys, those of you guys that listen a lot, or if you're brand new to the show, we have a group on Facebook. It's at #NoLimitsMoment. So we ask you to join us there and join in the conversation because each week we post the challenge and we like people to tell us how they're doing with it.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
This week will be fun.
Yeah.
So what do we challenge the listeners to this week?
So we are going to challenge the listeners to every single day do one little thing that is self-care for yourself. So like what's one little thing that you can do every single day that is a step towards taking better care of yourself? And I think the tricky part is asking yourself the question of what is it that you really need, Even if it's taking 5 minutes to just sit and tune into your breath in order to sort of reset your nervous system, go for it. If it's drinking your coffee at home in a mug rather than dumping it in your to-go cup and forgetting about it, go for it. Like what is one little thing that you can do for yourself in a day that's going to help you meet the big goals?
I like it. And I'd love to hear what everybody else is doing because, like when you said drinking your coffee in a mug slowly at home before you jump in the car, that is self-care.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have even thought of that. So sometimes it might just be slowing down enough to be in the moment.
Because if you're taking that, it's not about the coffee. It's about like taking the time and sitting and enjoying the coffee, being aware, focusing on one thing.
Right.
And if you're doing that, you're training your brain to have a single focus at a certain point,
Okay.
And it's about not multitasking because mindfulness is about moving away from multitasking, moving into a single point of attention.
So I need to actually sit and enjoy my glass of wine at night as opposed to taking a sip, going to do something, taking a sip, doing the dishes.
Yes.
Okay.
Be all in, challenge yourself to be all in when you do things. Because what happens is when we are focused on, studies show that when we are thinking about what we're doing, we're happier. Right. We're thinking about what we're doing, we're happier.
Right.
So questions I ask a lot of times is I'll say, I'll ask, I like to do this in a big group. I'll say, what are you thinking about right now?
Okay.
What are you thinking about right now? What are you doing right now? And if those two answers aren't the same, then you're distracted. And that distraction leads us to being a little bit unhappier.
Oh, that's interesting. What are you thinking about right now? What are you doing right now?
And so if you're thinking about your grocery list, while you're getting your massage, then you're sort of like,
defeating the purpose of the massage.
Or if you're, if you're just, it helps.
Yeah.
It trains us to pay more attention to what we're doing and to be more mindful.
I think that's a go. So thinking about versus what you're doing. I like that a lot. That's really neat.
Yeah.
So I think we could do that as we're kind of going forward and trying to figure out what we need for self-care.
Yeah, exactly. Because it changes with time,
Yeah.
like when it's, if you have kids and it's during the school year, it might look like one thing,
Right.
whereas, it might involve what happens when you get them to school, right? When the summer, when they're
Exactly.
home, it might involve them. It might involve
Yeah.
doing something with them so everyone feels more connected.
Yeah, which is good.
So what we need changes, and we have to be a little bit flexible.
And I like that. So I think for the challenge for this week, it's finding something, doing something every day. And it doesn't have to be the exact same thing. It's
Right.
what you need in that moment. But
And
being all that.
And just even asking yourself the question and being honest with yourself about what you need in the moment.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. So you guys got it, folks. That is our challenge from Sarah. We want to make sure that you guys let us know what you're doing. So hashtag No Limits Moment on Facebook. Tune into the challenge, find one piece of self-care to do each day and share it with us. Let us know how you're doing.
Yeah.
So Sarah, thank you so much for
Thanks
being
for
with
having
us
me.
today. And until next time, guys, keep pushing through those limits.